And so we're ready. And I have the pleasure to start the lectures this Monday. And in the title, in the, as you can see behind me, how to talk about my movie in the media, about promotion, contact with the journalists, and about building relation with the audience. In short, about all that this third button in the logo of Film Spring Open is responsible for. This face, this contact with a live person, or whether it's a viewer or a journalist. You can see me here in in various situations in the Film Spring Open all the time, but I think this might be a good moment to present myself and tell me who I am and what I do and how my experience can be useful to you. I'm working as a journalist. I'm working as a journalist of culture in the cultural uh, domain. I've been working in news for some time. That uh, it's like I've amassed 20 years of sitting in front of the microphone in the in the press, especially, and 15 years out of that of RMF Classic. It's the radio which, as you probably know, is very much culture oriented, music oriented, the especially and musical entertainment music, the classical music, and a bit of cultural commentary, even though there's not much place in the media for this. I'm not working in the media anymore. I'm working with new media. I have my own podcast, one which was created on the request of Audioteca. I will talk about that in a minute. I co-produce another one. I also deal with promotion of film music. I'm teaching too. I work in two universities, in the Musical Academy of the Academy of Music in Łódź and in the University of Silesia in the Institute of Music. It's an artistic department, and I'm talk, of course, all the time. I'm talking about music, about film, in the press, in other media. So, you have any questions? I will. I'm open. Of course, it's better to ask me first before you are asked about your project by the journalists. So I wanted to start with a certain popular opinion that the media are not nice. They are dangerous. That they are hostile. That it's always related to some big. There's always the stress to go into the media, to talk to the journalists. It's all surrounded by a certain aura of discomfort. And I do understand your arguments to a certain extent. However, there is a certain but, and we'll explain what this but is about. And above all, it is so that you need media much more than the media needs you. It's good to, it's worth to come up with your idea about this relation if you decide to be an author in many different aspects. You can be an internet author, a different journalist. You can be a person of cinema. You can be a person of music. You can be an author. It's good to come up with. You can come up. It's worth to have an idea about yourself for the media, because the media is not only about promotion of what you do, but they also allow you to build your own image outside or support the image that you have built with your hard work. And at the end of the day, they also work towards your earnings, because they also persuade people to go to the cinema to watch a film, or buy the CD with the music, or pay for listening to a podcast, or donating to your Patronite account because we are an interesting YouTuber or podcaster. There are many different negative examples of the role of the media in this role in this world of art, but there are also many positive examples. The media support you in the selling of your work, and if you want to work outside towards another person and not just for your own pleasure, this contact with the media is necessary. I quite often hear, because I work mainly with musicians, I quite often hear from them that they do their job very well, so they do not need to do anything more in terms of promotion. That the art will defend itself. That's me, the artist. I'm creating something, and It tells everything about me. It's a bit of an archaic and really bad approach because from the outset it assumes certain negative thought that we don't want to get to the media. We don't want to have get in touch with anybody. We're just making this out for ourselves. Yes, but this then we're doing that for a handful of our friends or family, and that's it. This circle cannot be bigger. I've never met an artist who would not want his art to be more to be more recognized in a wider audience. How to start? I have a very concrete example for you with a very concrete description. And I selected this one because I see in my journalist work that this is a huge problem. Almost nobody from among the artists can write a good, curt, short biographical note about themselves. And I face that all the time. I'm preparing for the concert. I'm following what I can see on the biography in the biograms of the artists, and out of that, for me, the person who has to use that, very little. There's very little meat. There is very little content. Then usually I need to talk to such a person to prepare something like that. So first, I wanted to devote this part of our meeting to the topic of how to write your own bio, which will be useful not for you because they're not useful. Then they're not needed for you. It is useful for somebody else. And here are the three important things which tell you which the bio is not. A bio, a biographical note, I will give you some examples so that you have no doubts, is not a CV. It is not a CV which we submit when we apply for work. It's not a scientific biography. It does not have to be written in a language. It should not be written in a language which is not widely understandable. And finally, it is not also the list of your achievements. So you should not put in your bio all the details from your professional life, because the older we are, the more we have achievements, the more achievements we have. The most common mistakes that people make when writing their bios or asking somebody for writing a bio, because I understand that this can also happen. So you go to the festival and somebody creates such a note for you. This note then gets to a catalog or on the website. And through that note, somebody else can find you. The most common mistakes you can find in bios is that first, it looks like a brick. It is one huge paragraph of condensated knowledge that blends together when you look at it into like a stream of letters, and it's very difficult to go through that. I mean, kudos to you if you can read that from beginning to the end. Then length. A biographical note does not have to be very long to be effective. And I will also show you examples of short and curt biographical notes of people who have Oscars, who achieved a lot and do not write like whole papers about themselves. Quite often I open a catalog and I see like 16 paragraphs, everything's included. It doesn't have to look like this. Like dry facts are also a mistake, or maybe they work to your detriment in a certain extent, because these facts for you are understandable, but for somebody who will be using that, and let me underline and stress it once again, that bio is for somebody else. It is for someone, most often for the people who can have little in common with your job, with your profession, and you have to translate your words to them. And then another very important mistake is that we want to tell about everything that happens in our life, that we graduated from a kindergarten of St. Joseph in Lublin, and then we were in the primary school in Bytom, and in the C class, and then we were in high school, and then this and then that. No, it's not like this. How do you write? First of all, do not write for yourself. Remember, this is not an information for you. this is most often not even information for people who are from within your profession. Of course, that too. But that note is above all is your business card outside. It's your presentation outside in other domains of art, and especially for the media and many other places where somebody who doesn't know you and would like to get to know you better will reach for that information. A biographical note should be built in a like a pyramid, starting from the most important things, so the thing which is on the top. What we write in this note at the very top, in the first 2-3 sentences, and even better in the first sentence, is the most important thing that the world would like to know about you. It might happen so that despite the fact that this note is written in a great way, nobody will read until the very end. Sławomir Idziak always says, underlines in the beginning, nobody awaits you. It's like a very brutal, very dark message in the media. Unfortunately, nobody's waiting for you in the media. So you have to reach out and you have to know that it might happen so. So if you can, try to include the most important information about us in the probably first 2 sentences. How to do it? First, answer the question who you are and what defines you. Maybe you are defined by one big success. I will give you an example. Imagine that you are a director and a scriptwriter. Okay, let's say you're a scriptwriter and a director. In the first sentence, these 2 words should be in the first sentence. And one more thing, which I didn't tell you about. The biographical note is not made in first person unless they tell you that it's out from you. Unless you're asked to do that. I'm a producer, I'm a composer, I'm a director. If there's no request for such a note, then it would be best to prepare it, how to say it, in the third person perspective. So a director, a scriptwriter, producer, composer, YouTuber, podcaster, whatever you want to say. And in order not to build up this opening only from dry facts only, find in yourself something that might define you in an interesting way, in a soft way, in a warmer way. Maybe there's something that influences who you are, and you can include that. It can be an important award. If our director and scriptwriter from the note that we're writing is a laureate of a student's Oscar, then absolutely this information has to be first. If you've just completed a super prestigious, you graduated from a super prestigious school in Los Angeles or Las Vegas, it's also a fact which at this moment of career defines you. I'm talking about this moment of career because this well-written note will grow together with you, so you will be able to move those bricks around a bit. So as you grow in your career, it will be still up to date with small changes. I hope that Natalia Jasińska, who is here with us and who is a composer, will not be offended that I will use her example, but when we wrote the note for Natalia, we were wondering what we can put which is less dry under this, like multi-instrumentalist and composer. What else can be included there? And we came to the idea that this specific thing, that the unique thing about Natalia is that she does film singing. She sings in films, which you could see in the movie Sonata of Bartosz Blaszka. So we wrote, apart from the fact that she's a composer, apart from the fact that she's a multi-instrumental, the author of the music for games, and that she specializes in solo singing, and that made to the top of in the first 2 sentences. So this defines her to a great extent too. So I have for you also other examples which I got from from the web to show you some soft accents that might define a person in those first sentences. Piotr Beczała, a very well-known tenor in the world, like world-renowned, one of the stars of world opera, a Polish person. Here you have his biographical note, not from his website because it's in English, but this is a portal Culture PL, which promotes the Polish culture in the world. These texts are in Polish and in English, but they are also very minutely prepared with a great attention to details, so that everybody knows who is who and who does what. Piotr Beczała, and you can see, hailing from Upper Silesia, a lyrical tenor, laureate of the Oscars, and one of the most popular Polish singers in the world. This is the most important first paragraph. So what does it tell us? He wants to communicate that he's from Poland and that he's from Upper Silesia because his Silesian identity is very important. Maybe your place of origin will be important to you too. Maybe you come from Kaszubia and you love that tradition, history. Every time you try to include part of that world in your artistic activity, use it. Piotr Beczała sings on the biggest opera scenes of the world, and he always and everywhere he says he's a guy from Upper Silesia, and it's fantastic. That's a soft description, soft definition, which sort of moves us away from dry facts, like laureate of an operatic Oscar, and lyrical tenor is also a dry fact. And one of the most sought after Polish singers in the world. In my view, he's the most sought after, but depending on who wrote, maybe this might not have been proper to write that he's the most sought after Polish singer. I know that it's a barrier. There is a certain barrier. I also have this resistance when I have to talk about myself. I know that I should include something about my voice. People know that voice, people recognize my voice. During the concerts I use my voice too, and thanks to that I have certain following, certain audience. What should I write? That I have a great voice? I have this resistance to boast, but I have this slogan which I put in my bio, which is for me still a safe one. But it draws people's attention that what's most characteristic in my work is the sound of my voice. So you can be afraid of such a slogan. The director and scriptwriter from the Lower Silesia, or I don't know, the director or scriptwriter laureate of a Student's Oscar, one of the most talented young artists of the Polish cinema. Of course, you can be afraid to write something like that about yourself. I do understand that. Try to ask then, how would somebody else define you, describe you? If you feel that such a sentence that defines you in your community, in the community of internet creators, of filmmakers, try to ask somebody, try to bounce this idea of somebody. Well, if you ask a friend and ask your friend, so how would you describe you? And if he says that you're one of the biggest talents, then yeah, okay. I mean, you can search for it. You can search for it for quite a while. I mean, this solo singing took us several days to define it. We were walking around this idea how to put that to words. It does not have to be born on the spot today. It can be. You can get this idea in a month's time. Ask people how they see you, what's most interesting in you, what they like in you, and use that. Piano hooligan, or Piotr Orzechowski, a Polish pianist, a great one, a jazzman, and yes, what can you see in his bio? This is a bio from his website. Pianist, improviser, composer, the graduate of Berklee College of Music, a laureate of many prestigious awards, and defined by the critic the most creative and uncompromising artist of young Polish jazz. Let's put a dot here. Let's try to analyze those two first sentences. Yeah, pianist, improviser, composer. Boom, boom, boom. No doubt who this person is. He plays some other instrument, or I don't know, he arranges music. What he does, it's very concrete, to the point. The second sentence, graduate of Berklee College of Music. Why did he use that? Because this is one of the most prestigious schools universities of music in the world. So no wonder that he put it in the beginning. You can be as proud that you graduated from the musical academy in Krakow or Poznań, but he graduated from that school and he boasts it. And now the most important thing: the laureate of many prestigious awards and distinctions. If you have many of them, you cannot list them up. But if you want to show that you achieved a lot in your life, let's try to put that in one sentence. And now, what does Piotr do to evade so that he does not need to write about himself that he's so great? He uses a quotation. He's hailed by the critics the most creative and uncompromising artist of a young Polish jazz. Maybe somebody somewhere wrote something about you in a review that you will want to put in a note like that. Do that, because this is a very good trick how to boast, how to promote yourself, how to make this auto-promotive element, but not be judged as selling yourself or, I mean, being too pushy. I think now, so now that we move from this opening, let's now think how how those how to build those paragraphs, or how to build a note so that it does not look like a break, so that it's attractive. This is a text which is written, but due to the fact that it's written, it also have to be attractive visually. It has to be attractive to the eye, so that the head follows the eye, so that you can read it quickly. Look at this. This is a fragment of a biographical note of Leszek Możder from his website. Look at this. You do not have to introduce Leszek Możder to anyone, and his portfolio, as you can see, is very, very big. You have like CDs, albums. You have like plenty of it. What does Leszek Możder's team do when they write a note about that? To make it visible so that nothing is lost, they put it in points, in bullet points, and divides them into. He recorded over 100 albums, including many under his own name. And I understand my eye and my brain sees these are this, and then of course in chronological order, and then the part that is truncated in the lower part, and it's also worth to note his film and theatrical performances. Again, bullet points. So an idea was defined to present his huge um, mm, uh, like a portfolio of work with a sort of list that is very, very clear. Try to think that Leszek Możder wrote it one after the other. He just lists it in one paragraph. It makes one huge paragraph, which is impossible. It's just intelligible. Another example, that's a phenomenal American musician and organ player. How did he describe his, despite his young age, did he describe his rich career? He divided it into stages in life. 1981 when he was born, and 2000 that. But then he makes another paragraph, not to give this impression of a brick that hits us in the face, and we're not able to go through it, to read through it, whether we are a fan or a journalist. And this is Rafał Blechacz. And here, I point your attention to one more thing. This note is also truncated on purpose because only in the third chapter, sorry, it's not only in the third paragraph at the very end, Rafał Blechacz writes that he was born in 1985 in Nakło nad Notecią. He started to play piano at the age of 5. He decided that it's quite important. He wanted to write about that, but he did not write it in the first paragraph. We have a phenomenal artist, a filmmaker, and we start his bio that he started making films when he was 6 years old. That's not how you should build your bio, because the bio should be effective. It's not a description of a certain life and listing of individual schools. It has to be effective. And Hania Rani. Hania Rani is a good example because she wrote about herself. My work, that's how she titled this note of hers. Then she's writing in third person, so it's mixed. So what I would like to point your attention to is that is something I pointed attention to in the previous case. On the top, you get what's most important for you in your career right now. In case of Hania Rani, these are new CDs, new things that she's done. And okay. Oh, one more example. Stephen Price, an Academy Award-winning film composer for Gravity. In the first chapter, he writes. In the first paragraph, he writes about the gravity. In the first sentence, he writes that he's an Academy Award-winning. And in those three paragraphs that you can see here, apart from the annotation that he started his career in the late 1990s, everything else are relatively new movies. It's just to give you an example, several examples how you can prepare that note for yourself, but you can do that in your own way, as you wish. So another three very difficult elements. When you finally come up with what your note should look like, whether it will be devised in such a way or this way. When you start it in an interesting way, please remember that nothing hurts the eye more and nothing tells more about yourself than the fact that you have orthographical and other linguistic mistakes, that you miss a comma, or there are too many commas. Oh, I'm sorry, my throat fails me. So be correct in your writing. I would say a certain hygiene of the text. So and the dates, competitions, and festivals. You should include all the names, the country, the everything should be put in brackets, dates, etc. And let's move on. I have for you a short piece of description of a musical piece which got to me once. What do you think? It's not that dangerous. It's above all, it's difficult. It's very difficult to understand. And for the composer, for another composer, it might be more, well, maybe a bit easier, but it will. It's very difficult for me to understand for another musician. I, as a journalist, I said, well, written very well, but it's not useful. It's not useful at all. Mm, even if we do not take the music in, I mean, regardless of what kind of music it is, or if it's good or not, and you get just such fragments in the descriptions of films, of festivals, of events, of anything else to the media every day. They're so contrived, they're so complicated, so convoluted, sorry, so personal. I'm not saying that personal is wrong, but it's always with the thought that I'm writing this for myself and I didn't write it for somebody else. And now we're moving on to the spoken word. Not everybody is a good speaker, and that's no problem. I have an example for you from my sort of from my job, from my work, to tell about my things in a non-conventional way, in an interesting way, and to remember at all times that what we're saying about talking about telling about our projects, we have to tell it to somebody else, not to ourselves. That was for ourselves, but now we have to do it accessible to others. In 2013, I made a show. I would like to run for you for just a fragment of it.
Wnętrze. Redakcja radia. Późne popołudnie. Na biurku stos kartek. Kilka otwartych książek. Dookoła leżą płyty z polską muzyką filmową. Na komputerze ktoś pisze mistrzowie drugiego planu. Scena pierwsza, ujęcie pierwsze.
Kto jest najważniejszy na planie filmowym?
Reżyser.
No, chyba aktorzy albo kamerzyści, no.
Reżyser i aktor. I kontakt między nimi.
No moim zdaniem najważniejsi są ci, kto winni widać, czyli ci, co obsługują sprzęt i tak dalej. To jest tak, że czasami ludzie właśnie zapominają o tym, co jest najistotniejsze. Widzą tych, którzy tam gdzieś występują, a nie zdają sobie sprawy, dzięki komu oni mogą ich widzieć.
Jeśli Tobie też, drogi widzu, praca osób niewidzialnych na planie filmowym wydaje się najbardziej fascynująca, to jest to program dla Ciebie. Magdalena Miska Jackowska, zapraszam na pierwszy odcinek tej niezwykłej podróży po świecie polskiej.
Okej, dziękuję.
Dlaczego niezwykłej? Bo opowiadanie...
No właśnie.
Okay, so why is it extraordinary? Because
Nie każdy może
not everybody can is able to talk in a great way. Not everybody is a great speaker, and I turned that I reshaped that into an upside. It's sometimes good to talk with somebody with a focus puller who's really outspoken, and not with a director who doesn't want to talk. And I made a show. How to make films, and I was asking people from the crew, the editors, set designers, costume designers, focus pullers, sound engineers, dolly drivers, all the professions, and the more they're mysterious and the less they were known to the public, the more interesting it was. Not everybody is a great speaker, and that's not bad. Try to delegate somebody from your crew if you have a task like that. Somebody who has this like easiness, this flair for words, instead of pushing to the media somebody who does not like to talk. It's not that this somebody can talk or not. He might not like to talk. You might be the director who does not like to talk, and fine, that's okay. But now try to find a person in your project that wants to talk and talks in an interesting way. It might be someone about whom you did not think, because it might happen so that for media it's only the producer, the director, and maybe the scriptwriter. No, fascinating talks, fascinating tales were told. This show had like 10 episodes, and it showed the work on the set in different departments, and that was the best example for that. Of course, an interview might fail. It's another controversial thing, but it's okay. The interview does not go well because there's wrong energy, wrong sound. Like we feel bad, etc. We, the authors, the creators, and journalists, it is okay. Do not be afraid. If one interview goes wrong, it doesn't mean that your career is done for. Even if you said something in the wrong way, you're not happy with what you said, don't worry, nothing happened. I have several examples which were, well, mediocre at the best. Like my interview with, I once spoke with a Polish director, like a great woman, and she was a bit hostile towards me. At some point, she even told me, "Did I even see the film? What sort of questions are these?" And I smiled, and I will not start to fight with her. And she felt that she treated me too harshly. And at the end of the interview, she said, "I'm sorry. I really have a bad day today." It's okay. It might not be your fault. It might be just it's too stuffy. The area is too stuffy in the room. The questions might be stupid too, and that also happens, and that is also okay. Why can't they be stupid? Because it's too stuffy, because the journalist has to have an interview with you, and he didn't have a chance to see the movie or get prepared. This is how you work. In media, you work very, very fast, and sometimes you just skim the surface. And it's more important from the very detailed dive in a topic is to produce the content fast. And this is the reality. What can you do in such a reality? You as the authors, say your thing. That is the most important advice which I can have. If you are going into a broadcast or to a radio station with your project to describe something, to tell a story, think beforehand, before these questions get to you, what you want to say about your project, what you want to sort of tell to the media. Then the questions can lead you, of course, to the certain motives, but they don't need to have to. These might be very good questions, and you might have a great discussion. But there might be stupid questions too. I asked so many stupid questions in my journalist life that if I started to talk about it, I will end in a week. It just happens. You have the right to authorize of all discussions, interviews, talks, all your public activity, even if you said 3 sentences. Attention, this applies also to the radio. There is a law, you have the right. If you were in the radio and if the discussion was recorded, and if you feel that you mistook Spielberg for Lucas, and if you wanted to listen, if it's okay, you have the right to request the access to the material and to listen to it. Always, it's very important. How to talk about your project in the best way? I'm talking about those masters of the second of the background, the program that I did. It's best to talk about it with enthusiasm. I also have an example of people who came to the radio and they spoke. I saw that they were talking with the journalists, with the media, and really, as the authors, they were talking through everything. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't like that. I don't like journalists. I don't like media. This oozed out of their pores. Will your project sell better when you do something like this? Can you promote it in an interesting way then? Not really. And now the part that I will devote to to looking for the story. Media, just like you, they look for good stories. Give them, and you find those stories in people, in what you look at. Uh, Following protagonists in the media, um, writing a script, implementing that script, you know, getting the story in motions, and the media are looking for those stories in your projects and in yourselves. So, if you are completely fixated about your place of origin, director and scriptwriter, who in their animated movies tells beautiful stories about the tradition of that place, and it's like Lower Silesia, for example. This is a story for the media. If your movie has a prop, which is a true thing from many eons, from the ancient past, and this is like it tells a story. This is a story also for the media. You can tell a story through like those little bits and pieces, small stories, um, fished out of this thicket of information, of the general information that this is such and such project made in such and such way. If you go to the radio or a TV station or a newspaper or to a journalist, think first if you have a story in your project that might be interesting for the media. So this is the cover of my show, The Masters of the Background. You can see here a very simple description. Meet and see people without whom the film would not happen. And the title also was really like to the point, like the masters of the background. So the people who are working so far away that they're far away from the red carpet. Look here, we played the beginning of the first episode. You can hear this on the website of RMF Classic. It was made in 2013. If you wanted to listen to this, it's available in the archives. Okay, episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one was about something. There were 2 about DOPs, which also tells something. I gave them like a very accessible titles to draw attention of a person who has never been to the film set. Everything. And one interesting thing: this program was accompanied by an exhibition. It was a true exhibition in those times, which was called The Unseen. Piotr Litzwitz is a great Polish photographer. He spends a lot of time on the film sets, and he allowed us to show those pictures so that we could show the protagonists, the DOPs, the dolly drivers, the camera operators, the makeup artists, and everybody else during work, and stuntmen, of course. And this is a show which I made in 2019, played once again, and I got 2 awards for it, which told a story about the movie music. I mean, RMF Classic is all about the music in movie, and I wanted to talk about the phenomenon of the music in movie, and I was asking how does music impact our bodies. I was talking to psychologists. I was asking the directors and also actors not how they work with the music, but what they like themselves. And I asked the composers I knew to analyze and to analyze very well-known motives and very well-known melodies in the film industry, like James Bond. Why does it sound like James Bond? And it occurred that I'm working on a radio that plays cinematic music for like all the time. We're talking about it all the time, but nobody asked the question, why does Bond sound like Bond? Nobody asked that before. So I found some story, not that this cinematic music is and it's from some sort of music, but I asked what is it like? I mean, what is it in its core? And you can also listen to my show on the web. And this is to end up with. But before we go to that, I wanted to point your attention to certain things which are related to contact with the media. I said that the media are waiting for interesting stories, and these stories are from a very inquisitive journalist. I want to be such a journalist, and I try to be an inquisitive journalist. But you can also take them from an email. So what the journalist will get from you or from your crew in the so-called press release. It's worth to remember then that this press release should not be like this text. It should be accessible and very transparent, very clear, and it should tell a clear story: who, where, what, why. But in addition to that, so that it drops a lure to this journalist. Say, listen, man, it's an interesting story. Look at this. We are shooting in an old castle. Or let's say, we're making a student's etude, but our student's etude has one of the greatest actresses of the Polish cinema. Or we wrote that script basing on a letter we found in a bottle that was found in the bottle on the shore of a lake. Something special, this like small detail that will catch the attention, and you will find that the journalist will get interested. 100% sure. Okay, when we think media, we think about big radios, big TVs, like internet portals, the big ones. However, the biggest media get their information quite often from local media. And you should not be afraid of local media, because the local media submit the stories and the materials to the big players. If you have the possibility of getting in touch with somebody in the local radio or a local newspaper, do that. Or be your media yourselves. It's the question of running social media, or like using social media to tell stories about your projects. Listen, before I get to the finale, do you have any questions? No questions. Okay, so think again. I'm at your disposal. I'm available to you until the end of the workshops. So if you want to get to know how to get in touch with the media, how to get the media interested with your projects. And then at the end, I wanted to show you something. A year ago when we were here, Hans Zimmer, a great composer of classical music, he set up a TikTok account. We were wondering why. The masters also promoting themselves incessantly. This is a website of 8-time Oscar winner Alan Menker. Maybe we'll just give you the link, unless unless you try to change the Wi-Fi because your internet connection is broken.
Mogę spróbować podłączyć cię do sieci windstreamowej, jeżeli byś chciał.
If the laureate of eight Oscars promotes himself, why shouldn't you do that? If Hans Zimmer, who's the most sought-after composer of film music, sets up a TikTok account, why wouldn't you do that? At the end, about the viewer. The viewer is an interesting person. He's a great person, but he doesn't like to be patronized, or people he doesn't like. They doesn't like people to be. They don't like to be the author to be artificial or be whining. Don't do that. And so I think this is the most important key to get to the people. If you have no questions, that's all from me. If you have questions outside of the lecture room, you can talk to me at all times. Of course, yes. Let's get the microphone. Sorry for my voice, but I'm talking all the time for the last few days. And yes, it's at some point I was I was employed by a director to be a PR person, and I said I've never done PR. What should I do? He said, when the people from the media will come to you and will ask questions, you will have to talk to them in such a way that you shouldn't say anything. I said, okay, I will try. And they would come, they would ask, and I worked according to the instruction, and they quite quickly got discouraged because this PR was like it didn't work. So they would go to the director, and he said, I have no time, I'm busy. You have the PR guy, ask him, and he doesn't know anything. So you would ask the wrong questions. I have a PR guy. I'm busy. I got to the end of the film, to the end of the filmmaking, and it happens quite often. Such a spokesperson or a PR person is asked not to say this, and that. However, I do believe that there's always there's a story to sell. Because if the PR was in that movie, that means it was necessary. That means that contact with the journalists was necessary, right, to the film. Yeah, but because why otherwise? It was Machulski who's convinced that media don't like him. I don't know if it's true. If it does he like the media? No, he doesn't. Well, so it's reciprocated. It always works both ways. That's why he engaged me. He sent me out to the minefield. There's something like dislike for the media, but dislike for the media is usually when it's reciprocated. So we don't know the media as the authors, and the media, they wouldn't like us then. He's very sensitive to irony. Yes, I didn't mention that. That's also an important thing. What to do if somebody gives a bad review to our, like, destroys our project? Should we get offended and never use the word of media anymore? No, that would be an absurd. Just like we meet in life people who are not really positive to us, who will tread on our toes. The same story is for the with the journalists. They have certain right to review a movie in a certain way. They can give a bad review. This also, I mean, it's also a certain information about themselves. I have a very old-fashioned approach to criticism. I prefer to talk and write in a good way. And if I'm not writing and not saying, it's not that I don't know that this movie or this CD was not created. I do, but I do prefer to write well. I'm not a criticizing person. I'm not a critic. I do a critic's work sometimes, but I'm not a professional one. You have to remember that also that criticism requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. Really, we have very few critics who conform to these requirements. With the criticism, when I was, it was so when you were to go become a director, you would be accepted only if you graduated from some other field before, because they would accept directors only those who had some experience in life, people who went somewhere, they read somewhere. For me, critic is a bit like this. When you write about music, you have to know about theater. No, when you write a theater, you have to know about opera. You have to know about literature and this and this and that. I could count on the finger of my one hand that the people who have such knowledge in Poland, and they write fantastically. And even if they give you bad reviews, this is a constructive criticism. It adds something. There is no need to get offended about the media because of one criticism. Remember that there were many cases in the world, in the global art. Some, when critics hated something, and the audience loved it, just like the B-rated movies. If somebody says something bad about you, if somebody if the interview fails, if somebody asks you a stupid question, it means nothing. And especially, you should not get offended. You should not feel you don't want to talk to all the journalists. Come up with your world of presence, your way of promoting, your way of talking about your movie, and hit it. I mean, if you're going to an interview and you're afraid of stupid questions, it's good to know what you want to say, and you can always say it regardless of what the questions are. This is also a method, really. You can do that. So, and the ego of the director, who's aware that he made so many great comedies, well, good comedies at least, and somebody says, "How can they criticize me?" This is out of place. Well, absolutely, but here we're talking about a different example. When I'm talking to young people, I always tell them, smile and move on. The director, who's been in this business for many, many years, has many problems and conflicts with journalists who were in this industry. Some of them are already gone, some people even are dead. I mean, we're dealing here with like a huge artistic chapter of life. It's a totally different thing. I wouldn't be able to change such a person or prove to them that you can do it, that it's worth to do things. No, I not think so, but I can say this to young artists, because, and the young audience, because I'm not talking only about to the filmmakers, I'm talking also to internet content creators and composers. Define yourself as clear as possible and keep to that. One more thing what I will say from this musical community. In the classical music community in which I participate, so little is being said about promotion, so little is being said about, I'm not saying how to sell yourself, but how to create your own image, how to promote your image, how to uphold your image. I mean, you're still eons in, you have like your eons in front of them. Classical music has a lot of problem because it doesn't sell well. When you're listening something about the classical music, you run away because people think it's difficult. I don't know how to behave. It's not for me. You have to dress in like a stiff way, and then they look at the picture of the musician on the poster, and you can see like a black and white picture of a tired person who says, "It's too difficult to you. You don't know how to behave. You have to dress in stiff clothes." Don't go there. Now the artists are trying to dispel this image of an artist, this artist who's so stiff and far away. Do you know Jakub Józef Orliński? A countertenor, a great countertenor. Find him on the Instagram. I really recommend that to you. You will see what you can do with a bit of imagination, with a very difficult classical music that you perform. However, in my journalist experience, thousands of times it happened that somebody sent a description of a film festival, like a press release, and it was written in such a way that it said, "No, it's too difficult. I'm too stupid for this. No chance." And if you look inside and you dig a bit, you can see that there are interesting things on the inside, and there are things which are worth visiting by the journalist and the public. So when you think even about your profile picture in Facebook, think if that picture says about you, I'm a great positive person who does art, all sorts of art, or am I building the image of an artist who's inaccessible, difficult, distanced, aloof? This all works when I'm looking for the information. Imagine I'm going to the festival, the young in music. Maybe some of you got there. I need to run a meeting with filmmakers who are there and who do not have gigantic I'm finding a small note, nothing. I need to talk to that person. This person can be 20 years old or 21 years old, and I can say, why do I need this note? Why do I need anything on the web? I got on Facebook. I don't find anything. How should I do an interesting interview with someone like that? And they came with a great movie. Really, it's worth at every stage of your career. It's worth to try to create your image so that when the media is looking at you, they would know who they deal with, and so that it has like a positive vibe. Any other questions? I wanted to go back to what you said in the beginning, that there are artists who do not publish the content on social media because they think that art will defend itself. But I do think that it's worth to note also the other aspect, the other side of the coin, that artists who do not publish anything because think their art is not good enough. that what they do is not good enough to go outside and show it to the people.
No i co, są tacy?
Yes, there are people like that. What should we do with that? What should we do with this lack of self-confidence?
Jak sobie poradzić?
How to deal with it? How to encourage the people who still feel uh, who are too restrained. I mean, if you go to the shop and you buy trousers, in order to see what do you look like in those trousers, it's not enough to look in the mirror. It's enough you take a picture of yourself to see what it looks like. Maybe it's worth to do the same thing. If you feel uncomfortable, if I don't know, maybe I should ask, or if I have somebody in my surroundings, somebody who know is great, but they lack the self-confidence, maybe it's worth asking somebody from the outside what they think, and in this way add this confidence. See, like, there was this example of a quotation here in the bio. It's one of the examples. Let's reflect ourselves. Let's see the reflection in somebody else's eyes. Or it's a very effective method.
Poza tym chyba nawet te warsztaty są takie.
I think even this FSO workshop is a platform like this. We're doing like rough cuts of the movies. We do not like polish them. We learn, we try, we do just something. We just do anything. And in the ideal world, the work will never be 100% perfect. You will always be able to improve something. I wrote a book in June. It was published, and now I would write it in a different way. It's just October, and I don't know. I don't want to think how I would look at it if 5 years passed. So at some stage, you have to let yourself and your art go, if you want it. If you don't, I mean, I must tell you that I mean, of course, there are artists who build their career on being aloof, like Vangelis, for example. But these are just exceptions which prove the rule. Thank you very much, and I wish you a lot of success in everything. Thank you.